79 Voluntary Attachments. Presence of God, O Lord, I place myself in your presence, begging you to enlighten my soul so that I may see what are the obstacles to my union with you. Meditation. 1. To be perfectly united to God by love and will, the soul must first be cleansed of all appetites of the will, even the smallest J. 11:3. In the language of St. John of the Cross, appetites are disordered inclinations or affections for oneself or creatures, tendencies which are, according to their seriousness, more or less contrary to the divine will. God wishes us to love ourselves, as well as all created things, in the measure assigned by Him, with a view to His pleasure, and not to our own selfish satisfaction. These inclinations or appetites always give rise to venial sins, or at least to deliberate imperfections, when one willingly yields to them, even though it be only in matters of slight importance. The will of the soul which freely assents to these failings, slight though they be, is stained by this opposition to the will of God. For this reason a perfect union cannot exist between its will and God's. Moreover, if these imperfections become habitual, and the soul does not try to correct them, they form a great obstacle to divine union, and according to St. John of the Cross, they prevent not only divine union, but also advancement in perfection. He gives a few examples of these unmortified habitual imperfections: the habit of talking too much, unrestrained curiosity, attachment to little things, whether persons or objects such as food, and so forth, which the soul refuses to give up. There is also the attachment to one's comfort, to certain sensible satisfactions, little vanities, foolish self-complacency, attachment to one's own opinion or reputation. There is a real mushroom bed of appetites and disordered inclinations from which the soul will not free itself, precisely because it is attached to the meager selfish satisfaction which it finds in these wretched things. It is attached to them, that is why it cannot make the decision to give them up completely. These are precisely the habitual voluntary appetites of which St. John of the Cross says, one single unmortified appetite is sufficient to fetter the soul. On the other hand, when it is a question of imperfect inclinations arising solely from human weakness, of those which do not get beyond the stage of first movements, in which the will has no part, either before or after, but rather tries to repress as soon as it notices them, these do not prevent one from attaining divine union. ZBZD 11:2. It is the will that counts, and it must be completely free from the slightest attachment. 2. The least of these imperfections to which the soul is attached or accustomed is more of a barrier to increasing and advancing in virtue, and if one fell every day into several imperfections and isolated venial sins not the result of bad habits. 11:4. It is not so much these isolated falls, due to inadvertence or weakness, which hinder the soul's advancement, as it is the little venial faults, and even simple imperfections caused by habitual voluntary attachments which the soul does not take the trouble to uproot. Even though they are slight, they nevertheless constitute bonds which attach it to earth. For it comes to the same thing whether a bird be held by a slender cord, or by a stout one, since, even if it be slender, the bird will be as well held as though it were stout, for so long as it breaks it not, and flies not away. It is true that the slender one is the easier to break, still, easy though it be, the bird will not fly away if it be not broken. And thus the soul that has attachment to anything, however great its virtue, will not attain to the liberty of divine union. Zbid. St. John of the Cross has only one thing to say about renouncement and detachment: renounce everything, be detached from everything. If this demand seems unreasonable, let us remember that it is pure evangelical doctrine, that it asks nothing more than what Jesus proposes to us when he says, "Renounce thyself." He asks us to renounce ourselves not only in this or that matter, but in everything that might prevent us from following him, for he that will save his life shall lose it, and he that shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. If thy hand or thy foot scandalize thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee. MD 1625-18:8. Jesus teaches us in these words that, for the salvation and sanctification of our soul, we must give up everything that might become a stumbling block. To us it is precisely in this thorough renunciation, in this losing of self in everything, even in what is dearest to us, and if it were necessary, even to the extent of sacrificing our life, that we find the road to salvation and sanctity. Colloquy. Late have I loved thee, O beauty ever ancient, ever new, late have I loved thee. Thou wert within me, and I looked outside, I saw thee, and miserable as I was I longed for creatures, I was detained by the wonderful works of thy hands. Thou wert with me, but I was not with thee, though that which kept me far from thee could exist only in thee. Thou hast called and cried to me in my deafness. Thou hast shone as lightning, brilliant enough to drive away my blindness. Thou hast scattered thy perfume, I breathed it, and now I sigh for thee. I have tasted thee, and now I hunger and thirst for thee. Thou hast touched me, and I burn with desire for thy peace. St. Augustine. My God, give me the light necessary to recognize in myself all that keeps me from union with you. Grant me the light to recognize all the attachments which still bind me to creatures, and especially those which are most displeasing to you, because they proceed directly from pride and self-love. In the secrecy of my heart you teach me sweetly and gently, you show me clearly that I am still far from conforming my will to yours, in all things, and for all things. I love and desire so many trifles, so many imperfections which you neither love nor desire, because they are contrary to your infinite perfection. Give me strength to wage a constant and courageous battle against them. Do you know, O Lord, that I have great need of your help? For I am too attached to myself to be capable of struggling against my disordered affections, of giving up so many little pleasures which feed my egotism. I love myself too much to sacrifice what separates me from you. Then, let me present myself to you, O Lord, as a sick person to a surgeon. Plunge the knife into my soul, cut away and destroy all that displeases you, and that is not in accord with your will.